Oh, let me sip from my new mug.
Oh.
That is delicious. Tastes like freedom. Joe Rogan will not be silenced. This according to Spotify's CEO in a memo to his employees, and it comes after a video compilation surfaced of Rogan repeatedly saying the N-word. That prompted more calls for him to be canceled outright. Here's what the podcast host had to say about all that.
There's a video that's out that's a compilation of me saying the N-word. It's a video that's made of clips taken out of context of me of 12 years of conversations on my podcast, and it's all smushed together, and it looks horrible, even to me. There's nothing I can do to take that back. I wish I could. I do hope that, if anything, that this can be a teachable moment.
Spotify has now removed more than 100 old episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience over the controversy. Yes, hello. Terry Gross, fresh air. The company is committed to investing $100 million in content from, quote, historically marginalized groups, like the Duke of Sussex. Will that finally satisfy the woke mob? Here to discuss townhall.com political editor and host of the Guy Benson Show, only on Fox News Radio. It is Guy Benson. Welcome back, Guy.
Hey.
You are my favorite Northwesterner, by the way, just for the record. I know Andrew Stolman tried to make me say that he was, but it's you. It's always been you. It'll always
Thank
be
you.
you.
As I should be.
Yes. So let's discuss Joe Rogan. Do you think that his apology was sincere, and was it enough?
I think he is a sincere guy. I'm not a huge fan of his. I don't listen to him. I'm sure if I went back and listened to his podcast, I'd find a lot of it very interesting. I'd agree with some of it. I'd disagree with other parts. But that's irrelevant. And the question that you asked coming out of the break was, will this be enough, whatever the latest prostration is, to satisfy the woke mob? And the answer is always no.
Yes.
Nothing is ever enough to satisfy the woke mob. Even if you scalp someone and take them out, they celebrate for about 7 seconds. It's this ghoulish thing. Then they go on and look for their next target. This is an insatiable appetite for these people. And Kennedy, I have to say, watching this controversy play out, and this $100 million offer coming in from Rumble and Spotify going through these gyrations, I'm struck by three things about the anti-Rogan brigade, the people who are really focused on taking this guy out and deplatforming him, at least from Spotify. They're motivated and consumed by three things. Number one, envy. I think a lot of this is jealousy of how big his audience is.
Yes.
And how effective he is at communicating and drawing interesting people and new people into the fold. I think that they wish they had that, and they don't. So I think that's part of it, professional envy from others in the media. Another part of this is control. This is just a power play. They want to be able to control what people say, what people think, what is allowed to be discussed, and who's allowed to lead those conversations. And that's especially true of people who have penetration culturally. They can sort of ghettoize conservatives and put us off to the side and sort of say, oh, they're always going to be bad.
Yeah.
But someone of his magnitude, someone who isn't just easily shoved into one box, they're very threatened by that. And finally, and this is a huge one, bad faith. There is so much bad faith on the part of the people coming after Rogan. I think, to your first question to me, he's a person who's operating by and large on good faith. He's likable. He's genuine. When he screws up, he kind of admits it. These people are bouncing from one excuse to another for a goal of taking him down, no matter which one actually ends up working. Whatever the coup de grace would be, they're just casting about for it, putting out clips shorn of context, all this stuff. They are bad faith people. Ends justify the means. And it's pretty gross to watch, which is why, even though I'm not a big Rogan guy, I'm pretty fired up about this story, because there's larger principles at stake here.
And, you know, he's found a lane in new media. And that's something that terrifies traditional media, and they're really the ones who are going after him. You know, it's like Brian Stelter wishes that he had something that was compelling enough that a company would pay him $100 million for his content. There aren't a lot of people out there who know themselves well enough to be able to offer something like that. And, you know, I don't listen to his podcast all the time, but I have listened to them. And, he knows exactly what he's doing. And it is really compelling. He has these long conversations with people. And, he's one of the few honest interviewers left. Howard Stern used to be the best interviewer in media, but then he fell off a leftist cliff, sadly. And Joe Rogan has really taken that place for people who want to be invested in someone who's deeply curious, someone who is unashamedly honest, and they're going to hear things that they're not hearing from a propaganda machine like CNN. Okay, last word. We have to go. They're yelling at me.
Yeah, I just think that he sort of defies the gatekeepers, and the gatekeepers are very angry about that, and they sense an opportunity, they're trying to exploit it, and there's a lot of people shouting in the other direction saying, no, do not cave.
Do not cave. He won't cave. And if he does cave, we all wish we had 100 million reasons like that to cave. All right, Guy Benson.
I know, I'll take a fraction of that.
I'm fine with it. 50 million, I'm good. Guy, thanks so much. Good to talk to you.